I remember you can cut this out. I remember someone told my Alexa to slob on his knob.
Yeah, Alexa.
I don't even remember a thumbs up after that one. Hello, best friend Brenbrens, and welcome back to Season 3 of Rewatching Home Movies, a weekly watch-along podcast where three friends break down the 1999 animated series Home Movies. My name's Tim, and I'm obsessed with home movies.
My name's Adele, and I'm a home movies newbie.
And my name is Marcin, and I've never seen home movies.
Home Movies Season 3, Episode 6, titled Renaissance. Original air date October 13th, 2002 on Adult Swim, written by Brendan Small, Bill Broadus, and cast, directed by Lauren Bouchard, and produced by Carl Adams. Synopsis for this episode: Brendan, Jason, and Melissa are hired by Mr. Lynch to perform at the Renaissance Fair. Meanwhile, McGurk is also hired to play the role of the blacksmith. And there you go.
This is the title that I've heard a lot about from various people on accident, when I'm skipping through the interviews. I believe it was David St. Angelo who just mentioned the title. He said Renaissance before I had a chance to skip ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew that this episode title, whenever I was going to see it, was going to be kind of a big boy. And I've tried to avoid the title. I really did. But the second we were in the car and I saw that they were all dressed up in costumes, I was like, oh... Is this?
Yeah.
There's only a couple of things that the Renaissance title could represent. Could it be that they're studying the Renaissance paintings of whatever that time period was?
Right. Well, I mean, oftentimes titles for home movies episodes do have like a double or even triple meaning.
This one just has one.
Yes.
Right?
I think so. So we will get into this episode and so much more. But first, let's jump into the Creative Corner, shall we? The Creative Corner, of course, is something in the realm of creativity that we're consuming, producing, whatever that we want to bring to the light. So let us do this Creative Corner, please. Mr. Sir Paul McCartney. I'm Paul McCartney from the Beatles. Creative Corner, doodly-doo. Liverpool.
Hey, Paul. Paul's here.
Yeah, Paul. When you were introducing him and you said Mr. Sir, I thought it was going to be Mr. Sir from the movie Holes. And I was like, oh, what a deep pull.
Yeah, that's so deep. I don't even know that one. I never saw Holes.
He's never seen Holes.
No, sorry, missed it.
God.
We got to watch Holes.
Me and Nick really just recently, like a couple days ago, rewatched Holes, and it holds up so well.
Yeah, it's really good. I
Would you
love
say it
Sigourney Weaver in that.
holds up pretty well?
Excuse me?
Excuse me?
Because I'm the caveman.
So your Creative Corner is Holes. All right, so the next... No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, man.
Who would like to go first for this Creative Corner?
Dig it out, don't dig it. I will. I'll go. Oh. I fucking love that movie. My Creative Corner is Holes. No, I'm just, so sometimes when I am a little overwhelmed with life, I tend to go into escapism, like we all do. There is a really good video game that I've been gravitating towards, and it's called My Dream Setup, and it's a great game to just kind of like zone out and do your own thing. You're essentially just like decorating a house or like building a room, one that you can't afford in real life, so you just do it virtually, and you just throw on some music and just decorate and create, and that's what I got. When I'm zoning out, that's like the game, my go-to game, because there's no like thinking involved.
Right, because this isn't a game where like you have X amount of money and you have to buy each piece of furniture individually.
Yeah, you get all the furniture and everything, and then they have a community behind it where people can make their own furniture or wallpaper or whatever, and then download it into the game and let other people use it too. So you can, it's It's a little community based, but nothing too crazy.
Man, it's similar to Minecraft. I have the same feelings where it's just kind of mindless, and I can create whatever I want. All of the things I always dreamed of making as a child, and now I definitely am not allowed to.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it crazy that that's a whole category of things that people are escaping into? Like, I think Animal Crossing has something similar. Where
oh yeah, the DLC, I have it.
yeah, I watched you guys stream that for a while.
Yeah, that was a while ago.
Yeah, looking at the dream setup here, looks really cool, especially all the examples. Man, that guy's got an arcade.
Damn, yeah, the furniture, like the overall aesthetics that you can pull from, they're very like modern, but there's also some like retro stuff, so you can do pretty much any aesthetic you want. There's gothic, there's those are the words. Those are the words that are coming out of my mouth. because go get me one. Is what I would say.
Because go play it. That's why.
Because go play the fucking game, dude. I just times are tough. They're if you need to escape and not use your brain, that's a good game to do it.
Yeah, my dream setup. It seems like something I would really like to play, especially it seems like it's on sale right now. Oh my god, $3?
Yeah, it's cheap as fuck, which is great.
I was going to say, even when it's not on sale, I think it's like $6.
Yeah, it's a very cheap game, but it's like very well done.
No, fucking thank you, sir. May I have another? Like, damn.
And they have DLCs that are like $1 or some shit, where you can get like kitchen furniture or bathroom furniture. It's the possibilities are endless.
Like, I love video games, but I cannot afford them. Them and their fucking AAA $70 a piece goddamn games that are unfinished. So
absolutely,
a $3 game that I can just spend sitting there and decorating stuff and enjoying my time. Yeah, sign me up for that. Thank you.
Yeah, and there are no in-app purchases, which is like, oof. Those get me.
Mm-hmm. It's the reason I have not bought like a modern game in over. I think Overwatch was the last one.
Damn.
Because Tim has bought me Fallout 76 twice. Which I was itching to play that the other night too, and I just was like, oh wait, Tim's asleep. It's 3 a.m.
Although I took a little bit of a break from it, and every time I've talked about Fallout 76, I bring up this seasonal event with parades and super rare masks, and that came back around recently, and so I'm like back into 76 so hard.
I remember the last time we were doing that, we were sitting in the living room, and me and Adele, and you were like high, and we were just watching you do that, and you got a mask, and you freaked out so hard, and I didn't even know what was happening, but I was like, oh my god, he's got the mask. Hell yeah.
And then we smoked to celebrate.
Yes, we did. Hell yeah. Well, that's a good creative corner. Especially when Adele and I started dating, she got very into Animal Crossing, and I feel like the social aspect of running the island, you're like, yeah, whatever. Let me design these houses. Like that was the kind of the bread and butter for Adele. So this dream setup game, like as soon as she started explaining it, I was like, yes, of course, this makes so much sense for Adele.
I just like decorating stuff.
Yeah. I want to have my own space that looks nice and how I want it to look.
Right.
Damn it.
Yeah, without the chokehold of capitalism. Yeah.
Without the
HOA
that. Coming at me and being like, excuse me, it's too bright for this color.
Oh my god. Fuck HOAs. I would rather live in a ditch than live in an HOA neighborhood. Fuck that shit.
Agreed.
I also love the escapism of like, you can play a video game to do whatever you want to do in any faraway land, and you're like, I want to decorate a house with an unlimited budget.
Yeah. And it's a great game to just like put whatever fucking music you want on to and just like zone out, and that's what I need.
That's
sometimes.
So good. That's what I would do in Minecraft. I'll put on the Life is Strange soundtrack and just go to town.
Hell yeah.
Great creative corner.
Thanks.
Marcin, would you like to go next, or would you like me?
I would love to go next. So I've been digging holes, and no, I'm joking. Getting them holes, yeah.
My name's Caveman.
The name's Caveman. Oh, such a good fucking movie. Go watch Holes, legitimately.
Yeah, do yourself a favor.
Yeah. But no, my creative corner. So, I don't want to date or time this episode, but something in the wrestling landscape happened this past weekend, and it has genuinely rocked the professional wrestling landscape. It's rocked me. It's rocked my inner child. This is how bad it affected me. I was talking to my therapist about it for the entire time because of how crazy it is.
What happened?
I think it's okay if we say it, and I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. Can I explain it then?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Please.
So there is a character. There's a very famous professional wrestler by the name of Jonathan Cena, and
John Cena, who, by the way, holds the world record for most Make-A-Wishes granted.
Yes.
Aww.
Most Make-A-Wishes. He has done so much charity for children across the world. I know as a child, being 12 years old with my best friend, whenever John Cena would come out, we'd freak the fuck out. We'd like, wabadoo! And we'd be like, John Cena, yeah! My first gay thought was about John Cena. Like, let's just put that out there. I was like, I need to see if I'm gay. Let me think about it. John Cena. Why'd I do the Walter?
Maybe a little.
But so John Cena was an important figure in my life, and he has the mantra of hustle, loyalty, respect. Never give up. He'd come out, he'd always salute. He was always a representative of America to the fullest extent, to the point where I found out that Osama bin Laden was caught and killed because John Cena told me on national TV. Look down the barrel.
Larson gets his news from John Cena only.
Looked down the barrel of the camera and said, "We have found and compromised Osama bin Laden," and the entire stadium cheered. Like this is how important of a figure John Cena is. And this past weekend, I was watching Elimination Chamber with my partner Nick, and John Cena is retiring this year. He has the world record tied with Ric Flair with 16 world championships, and he wanted to win the Elimination Chamber to go into WrestleMania for the championship to break the record and gain his 17th championship. So we were watching this, and John Cena won. He's got the Elimination Chamber, and then Cody Rhodes comes out, The Rock comes out, and Cody Rhodes is his opponent at WrestleMania. And it was a really intense time. Like, John Cena is just like shaking Cody's hand. He's like, "I love you, man. Can't wait to do this." And then he goes for a hug, and then the camera catches John Cena's face as his smile turns to a scowl.
I missed this.
And he kicks Cody Rhodes right in the nads, and he turns heel, and he beats the shit out of Cody Rhodes.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
First time in 25 years he had turned heel. We were watching Elimination Chamber, and we could hear a child in the crowd saying, "John Cena, do you remember me?" Like,
oh,
all of these kids, I've seen countless videos of children crying because they saw John Cena turn heel. I was one of those kids. I was like, no! It's his last year and he's turned heel. I was talking to my therapist the full hour about this whole ordeal. It was crazy. This is something that people, especially in the professional wrestling community, have been wishing for a long time, but it's happened now, and I honestly don't know if I wanted it all that bad now. I don't know how I feel, but it has changed the wrestling landscape. For the better or worse, who knows? It's definitely one of the craziest, greatest heel turns of all time. It means so much to the business.
damn. Going out a heel.
Yeah. All that being said, my creative corner, I want to...
Is the movie Holes.
All that being said, my creative corner, I would like to shout out. They are a wrestling YouTube channel that they cover wrestling, and I've been watching them since 2016 when they had their own channel that they were a part of, and they actually left this channel and made their own wrestling channel. I was in college when I first started watching them. They were in college, so we've kind of grown up in the same age range.
Nice.
They're Cultaholic. Cultaholic Wrestling, they have a wrestling podcast that they put out every week. So if you don't have the time to actually watch all of the wrestling that is constantly going on, there are so much wrestling promotions all of the time. So I understand not having the time. You just listen to the podcast so you can kind of stay with it, and you can hear it from some really down-to-earth people who aren't like terrible, and they're just genuinely nice, funny dudes who can have you laugh. So I definitely would recommend Cultaholic. They have been a part of the wrestling business, not just as like wrestling YouTubers who are journalists, but also they had a promotion themselves back in 2016 called WCPW, and they were a part of bringing to light a lot of these new talent. Joe Hendry was an indie wrestler who is now a big name in the WWE and TNA. And Cody Rhodes was on that promotion before he came back to WWE, and just all of these different indie names that are just synonymous with the business now. So if you want to keep up with wrestling but don't have the time to watch 8-hour like PPVs or PLEs as they call them, please I recommend them so highly.
Hell yeah. I remember my introduction to John Cena was when that meme was everywhere, where you'd just be watching like a regular schmegular video and all of a sudden be like, John Cena! And like, oh, bro. I mean, at that time I was like, the internet can't get any worse. Like, this makes my body hurt every time I see it. And I was proven wrong, but at the time I was like, this is ruining the internet.
I'll take the memes, please. I'll take them back.
Yeah, exactly. I'll take the John Cena jump scares.
Yeah, that was my creative corner.
Well, that's a good creative corner. Yes, I saw this happen and almost texted you to be like, "Are you okay?"
We'll get to it.
Nice. All right.
It's a conversation for off the podcast.
Yeah. All right. Well, my creative corner, I'm going to kind of keep it short and sweet. I'm doing a podcast this episode, and this is a very polarizing podcast, but it's also a podcast that is very personal for me and actually kind of hits very close to home. This was a podcast I stumbled on a couple years ago called Murder in Illinois. And at the time, I was just consuming a lot of true crime podcasts. This one kind of slipped into the rotation. And in the first episode, the woman starts talking about the murder, and I realize this is a murder that took place in my hometown. Not only in my like small suburban hometown where shit like this never fucking happens. This took place right down the street from where I grew up, walking distance. So the podcast is called Murder in Illinois, Who Killed the Vaughn Family? And the whole premise is in 2007, a gentleman by the name of Christopher Vaughn was arrested during his wife's funeral. It wasn't just the funeral of his wife, it was his wife and 3 children. Okay. They were murdered. He was arrested. They were all in the car together. And again, I grew up in this town. So when this happened, everybody was like, oh, psst, open and shut. He did it. It was obviously him. They found him wandering by the car. In any case, this woman stumbles upon this story, starts looking into it, and there's a lot more going on here than kind of what the public knows. The reason I say this is very polarizing is, again, the town I grew up in, if you asked the general population, I would say overwhelmingly, probably 99 out of 100 people would be like, yeah, he did it, obviously. Like, there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. This podcast goes into kind of their relationship, and it's so much deeper. And, you know, I don't want to sit here and say that they were wrong and this man is innocent. But I will say, like, with this information, I now have, like, a little bit of doubt in my head about what actually happened. But again, like, the town I grew up in and her family and a lot of people are like, this is insulting, that this was an open and shut thing. So it's just very interesting. The woman who does the podcast, her name is Lauren Pachenko, I think. It's very good. She's very smart. She's very educated. She knows what she's talking about. She's done other podcasts about people who were found guilty but presumed innocent. I'm looking at the podcast now, and even all the reviews are like, this is disrespectful to the family. I can't believe you did this. Da-da-da-da-da. So yeah, it's very polarizing. A lot of people in the area don't like the podcast because they think it's you know, very disrespectful. But people who are into true crime, and especially like wrongful convictions, are like, oh, this is a classic case of wrongful conviction. The podcast is already done. It's over with. There's a handful of episodes that basically goes through everything beginning to end. And, you know, I wish I could say that there was this amazing, epic resolution of a conclusion, but there's not. And that's just kind of how life is sometimes. So very good creative corners, everybody. Are we ready to jump into this episode?
Yes, sir.
I can't hear you.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
John Cena.
All right.
All right. Well, this episode we open up and we see a sign for Yum Yum Donuts. Open 24 hours.
Mm.
So, one of the few episodes this season, we don't open in a movie. We don't even open with them going over or talking about a movie. We are in a car with Melissa, who has a highway bingo card,
Yes.
sitting in the backseat with Jason, Brendan up front with Paula, Paula who, by the way, looks extremely tired.
Oh, yeah.
Without any context right away, we see Brendan is dressed like a king, Melissa has flowers in her hair, and Jason is dressed up in, I would say, a fairly traditional Robin Hood costume. Paula makes a comment how she's never been so tired, and Brendan tells her to pull over to get some sleep, to which Paula replies that she'll just sleep right here.
Been there.
Yeah, right? Jason is drinking a coffee, but mentions he's allergic to coffee, and Brendan points out that it's decaf. Melissa thanks Paula for driving them so early and getting the coffee, while she's giving Jason some side-eye. Jason is arguing that he can't drink coffee, and they should stop and get him something else. Paula makes a comment she doesn't understand why they need to be there so early, and that's when Brendan points out that Lynch is the county chairman of medieval activities, and he takes it pretty seriously.
Seeing that highway bingo card unlocked a very deep memory in the back of my mind. Like, did you guys ever have those as kids?
No, I was going to ask if that existed.
Yeah, you slide the little red door over once you see like a pig or like a highway sign or like just stuff on the highway.
Yeah.
A graveyard, a hospital, like that was how you passed the time on long road trips.
Yeah, hers looked like it was more sign-based, like it was like a yield sign and a stop sign and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, those are definite actual things. I don't think we ever physically had the cards, but we did a lot of like trying to spot license plates from every state.
Yeah, we did that too.
I always just saw the cows and I'd go, look at the cows, and that was it.
And then the whole car would go.
I want to go on road trips with your family.
No, you don't. No, you don't. No, you don't. It's either we're all stimming or we're all in silence because we're pissed off at each other. That's the only two.
Yeah.
The only two things on family road trips.
See, there was a very cool point with my family road trips where we were all old and mature enough to be like, yes, we all smoke weed now. So road trips are now like, cool, let's just smoke every hour or so. And it made our road trips a lot more bearable.
Especially the driver.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, I haven't been on a family road trip with my blood family in a very long time.
Yeah. So
who knows how it would go now.
Right.
The other thing I wanted to point out was that the pattern on the cups that they were holding was that the 90s little color pattern that you see everywhere.
I didn't even notice.
Yeah, it
funny.
looks like it. It could be. I don't know, but the nostalgia came at me.
This is when Jason points out that he actually doesn't like the medieval fair. And Melissa immediately pushes back and tells him that he does. And that's when Jason says he'd rather go to the sci-fi convention.
I love how they say sci-fi in this episode. They're like, the sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
What about the sci-fi?
And also in this episode, medieval fair and Renaissance fair are basically interchangeable. I think they say both. The episode is called Renaissance, but they call it a medieval fair probably more often than they call it a Renaissance fair.
Aren't they technically two different time periods or
Probably.
Yeah.
I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
I think it's just an excuse for everybody to dress up and
Exactly.
pretend that they're somewhere else.
Funny enough, in the commentary, they talked about how a Ren Fair and a sci-fi convention arguably are just a bunch of dorks. They're a bunch of nerds. They're a bunch of people who nerd out about either sci-fi stuff or medieval stuff.
Hell yeah.
One of the things that Brendan always kind of noted and enjoyed about the Renaissance types fairs are people are very into role-playing at these. Later on, when Lynch is talking to everybody and talking about the class systems, like that is something that is very prevalent at a Renaissance fair. If you're addressing a king, like you do address them as though they were a king.
Mm-hmm.
Have you two been to a Renaissance fair?
Nope.
No. Okay. I have been a couple times. Teresa actually took me to my first time. That was a blast.
Nice.
But I guess I wanted to ask, like, I'm not a huge fantasy guy. I don't like fantasy very much. I love going to the Renaissance fair, but like if I had to choose, I am a sci-fi dude. I don't fantasy kind of bores me because it's just a bunch of guys walking in a forest and essentially.
But there are dragons and wizards and King Arthur
and wands and this and that and magic and
I don't know. I never really thought it. I think I'm both, but if I had to choose, I'd probably pick Renaissance just because it's more. I don't know.
Nature.
I don't know. It just seems more whimsical. Nature.
Well,
yeah,
and I feel
definitely.
like a Ren fair, I would be more likely to dress up and like get into it. Whereas like a Comic-Con or sci-fi type convention, there's not really anything that I'm that obsessed with that I'm like, I would dress up as a Power Ranger or I will be one of the 900 Deadpools at this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I never really got into the cosplay aspect of like Comic-Con type things, but I feel like if I went to a Ren fair, I would definitely dress up.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
I feel like Ren fairs are easy because you just need a forest. But like with a
Right.
sci-fi, I don't even want to say a convention because a convention is just a whole different ordeal in general. But if there was like a spaceship that someone could walk onto, I think it'd be a different story wholeheartedly. But yeah, I just want to get your different takes on what you prefer.
Yeah. Plus, I feel like if you're like trying to make a costume on a budget, I feel like Renaissance would be easier to find at like
Sure.
thrift stores and things instead of trying to like make a cyborg costume or whatever the
Right.
fuck.
Yeah, that's true.
Paula asks what the sci-fi convention is, and Brendan tells her it's a bunch of dorks trading action figures. And I love it. Paula's response is, oh, like that thing I took you to last year? And I love this part because Jason butts in to say, believe you me, they're not a bunch of dorks. And then proceeds to do the dorkiest laugh I've ever heard.
Yeah.
He's like, they're not a bunch of dorks.
Jason's a little dork. I feel like the ultimate crossover between Renaissance and sci-fi as far as like a fan base would have to be Doctor Who. And I'm sorry that I'm bringing up Doctor Who again, but like the time and space, he can be sci-fi and he can go back in time.
Yeah.
So you can be both for
Yeah,
sure.
never apologize for bringing up Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a person that we need right now. Like the Doctor represents
Absolutely.
so many different kind things. What was the 12th Doctor's thing about? Like never be this, never be that. But like I forget the poem, but it's a wonderful poem.
Yeah.
I'll look up and eventually bring up like an hour into this podcast. But
Right.
But I agree with that. I think fantasy and sci-fi can be connected. There are some times where
Yeah.
they are bitter enemies, which I will bring up in like 10 minutes. But
Right.
Melissa asked Jason, isn't he more interested in medieval times because it actually happened? And Jason pushes back and says, so did the sci-fi stuff. So they argue for a bit, and Melissa tries to tell him it's going to be fun and that Dwayne's band is going to be there. And immediately Jason says he doesn't like Dwayne.
A crazy lore drop, because since when do you not like Dwayne?
He was
Jason?
crying in director's cut when Brendan's like, Dwayne's dead. Now we're going to do our movie.
Yeah, what happened in between that episode and this
maybe
one?
he thinks this is a different Dwayne because Dwayne died.
Oh, the other Dwayne. Yes.
Oh, right.
This is Dwayne the Rock Johnson that caused John Cena to turn heel.
He knew.
Jason tries to convince Brendan to go to the sci-fi convention, and Brendan reminds him that they're getting paid to perform at the medieval fair. And I love it. That's when Jason suggests they take the money from the medieval fair and take it to the sci-fi convention, and they can buy collectibles. Well, that's when Melissa points out they're already going to the medieval fair. They're dressed for it. And Paula, obviously still tired, says, oh, is that why you guys are dressed like that? And Brendan's like, yeah. Mom? Yeah.
Get with it,
I
Paula.
was waiting for a crash out the entire time. She looked like she was at her wit's end.
Did she just drop them off, or is she like in the parking lot sleeping?
It feels like she dropped him off.
Yeah.
Yeah, Paula is only seen at the beginning and ending of this episode. She is basically the taxi. So my guess is she dropped him off, went home, went back to bed. Yep. And this scene ends when Jason suggests they all sing a song. And the three of them begin to sing about the medieval fair, but all with different lyrics.
Classic.
This is when
And then Paula drives off the side of the road.
exactly. That's what I was expecting, and I would not have been mad about it.
Yeah.
The following scene, we see a man putting up a sign for the medieval fair, and we pan over to see Mr. Lynch dressed as Merlin. He's talking to a group of actors. He begins his speech talking in Elizabethan and explains that they all need to learn to speak it. He brings up Brendan, who is dressed as King Arthur, and explains that they will be improvising in character that they are dressed in. He goes on to explain that the class system is very important. He also points out that he will be playing Moylan.
Moylan.
And I love it. Brendan's like, did you mean Merlin?
Moylan. I have a confession.
Yes.
Before we ever started this podcast, Tim showed me this episode of Home Movies, like, I don't know, a few years before.
Yeah.
And I had forgotten 95% of it. And watching it now, knowing that I know the characters, you get like this new appreciation for it. When I first watched it, I had no idea what Mr. Lynch even looked like because he's dressed as a wizard the entire time.
Yeah.
So I had no idea like his character design or anything. So I just rewatching it now and seeing it through a different lens, through a fisheye lens, maybe. I don't know. It's just I have a new appreciation.
Yeah. So I will admit that typically when I introduce somebody to this show,
Mm-hmm.
if we don't want to sit there and be like, let's watch every episode in order, this one and another one from season 3 are typically the 2 episodes that I'm like, well, let's watch these 2 episodes, and if you dig it, we can go from there. So yeah, I showed this episode to Adele long before we even conceived of the podcast, is just like, oh, hey, I really like this show. Here, this is one of my favorite episodes. Let's check it out. So yeah, it's like when you watch a movie a second time, but you know what the twist is. Now she knows the Lynch and McGurk dynamic. Now she knows Walter and Perry. Now she knows Fenton. It's like watching a movie and being like, oh, I know what's going to happen. I know these people now.
The funny thing is, I completely forgot the twist ending at the end
Yeah.
of this episode, even though I had already seen it.
I didn't know this was Mr. Lynch, too, as we were coming in, because, like Adele was saying, he's not in his usual design, but his eyes looked familiar. And that, and then he started talking. I was like, oh, he's a dork. That's Mr. Lynch. I love him.
Yeah.
But I did write down, if Mr. Lynch was in Middle Earth, he would have died off screen.
Damn.
That's all I could think. I was like, man, you would not have survived a second.
Yeah.
Well, he brings up Jason after explaining how important the class systems are and treats him like a common archer, calls him a swaggart and a foolish tart, and tells him to fetch him an ale.
Damn. Historically, is that accurate that wizards were above archers? Because were wizards even...
Right.
Mr. Lynch, go back to history class.
Weren't wizards like hands to kings then, though? If they were like considered
I don't
a genuine
know.
wizard?
I think so. The fact that he's treating him like a common archer, and Jason even says he's like, I'm Robin Hood. Okay.
All right.
So, if you don't believe in magic, wizards were essentially just snake oil salesmen who tricked the king into
Right.
All right.
Absolutely. Where most archers protected the king, so you'd think they'd be equal? I don't know.
Right. But, I mean, Mr. Lynch as a wizard, he does bow to the king, as he should.
Hail to the king. Also, are we allowed to say swaggart anymore?
What's, I don't know. Why?
Well, isn't that what we called, like, people who said swag back in the day? You swaggart.
No, I don't. I do.
I have no
I literally
idea.
was reaching to my phone to be like, fuck, is this like an insensitive word now? And then, like, once you said that, I stopped. I was like, oh, okay. I see. Okay, so Moylan goes back to having a conversation with Brendan, and again, greets him in Elizabethan, and it gets to Brendan's turn to reply, and he's like, wait, so do I talk now, or... And so that's when Lynch points out that this is Brendan's first time. Actually, it's everyone's first time. So if they have a problem, he's prepared a list of outs. If a character talks over your head, they can read one of these outs. And yeah, he even said, I wrote these at 6 o'clock this morning. I like this. The next scene, we have a series of arrows that shoot across the screen as like a transition. And we have Mr. Lynch's Merlin talking to Dwayne. Lynch is asking what the problem is, and Dwayne explains that the band wants to know when they get paid. And Lynch tells him, we already talked about this. I love it. Dwayne's like, cash up front?
I don't care.
Lynch is like, no, you perform and then you get cash. I don't care. Yeah, and then anytime like Lynch would say anything, Dwayne would be like, so?
So?
How old is Dwayne again?
Like
15?
15?
Okay. All right, that makes sense. He's the same height as Mr. Lynch, but that makes sense.
So one last time, Dwayne asked, cash up front? And Mr. Lynch says, no, cash after. And Dwayne's like, okay. And then Lynch is like, okay, then go away.
Oh, man, I wonder how much they were getting paid.
$5.
That's a good question.
Probably.
Yeah. $5, did that you say?
Probably $5 and a corn dog, let's be honest.
Yeah. I mean, they fucking killed it for
Oh, yeah,
$5.
they did.
I'd say so. I would say so.
I would say that this is the best performance that Scab has ever done that I have seen.
Ooh.
So far.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Lynch declares that they are now ready to open, but then asks where his blacksmith is. Marcin, did you have any idea who was going to be playing the blacksmith?
As soon as Mr. Lynch said, "Where is my blacksmith?" I knew it was going to be the second Mr. Lynch said that, I knew it was good. I didn't even have to think. I could have closed my eyes for the rest of the episode.
Well, that's when we cut to Mr. McGurk in his car, groaning in pain, obviously hungover. He gets out of his car and immediately throws up multiple times. So they do mention this in commentary. Sometimes with TV shows, there's this weird thing where they're like, you can show a character vomiting, you cannot show vomit.
Interesting.
That's why McGurk's mouth was always right under the bottom of the screen when he was throwing up. You could see it kind of around his lips and stuff like that, but they are physically not allowed to show vomit coming out of a character's mouth.
Just in animation or in general?
I think that was probably that's probably where you're like TV 14 animation stuff, because obviously when you talk about garbage like Family Guy, like they, show characters actively throwing up all the time.
I hate the Family Guy vomit scene. Like, that is, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, it's on the same level as that scene from Team America where the puppets are just throwing up for like 10 minutes straight. I cannot. Like,
It's too
I
much.
don't have a problem with vomit, really, but like the Family Guy bits just go on for too long.
Yeah, I agree. So I don't know if that's like a TV 14 versus a TVMA thing, if that was just like what Adult Swim wanted, but they specifically said that first scene with McGurk, they were not allowed to show vomit physically leaving his mouth.
Good, and I appreciate that
Yeah.
because I don't need to see that
Yeah.
shit.
I've never had a hangover before, so I didn't know how bad it was or how bad it could be. And watching this is like, oh, I never want to. I never want to drink like that. That is, I thought he was having a heart attack when he first started stepping out of his car.
Good on you for never being hungover. That's
Must be nice.
Alcohol is just
Yeah.
icky. It's gross.
yeah.
Bring me sugar.
I feel that way now because if I just have a few
yeah.
drinks, I'm hungover the next day like I had drank an entire keg to myself.
Absolutely, same.
So
Once I got hungover a few times in my early 20s, I was like, I'm done. I'm good.
yeah. For me personally, the worst part of a hangover was always the headache. I always had a really bad headache
Yeah.
from being dehydrated, probably.
The drunkest I've ever been was when I took a shot of Everclear, and
Oof.
my friend Chaz was like, "Listen, you're gonna feel like you're breathing fire for the next 2 minutes, but it's gonna get you really fucked up." And then we were playing Magic: The Gathering, and I was trying to explain a move I was doing. He's like, "Dude, that Everclear fucked you up. I have no idea what you're saying right now."
You're just mumbling.
I thought I was gonna have a hangover, but no. But seeing McGurk like this makes me go, "Nope, I'm good. I am absolutely fine without that."
Yeah.
Well, that's the next scene. We see McGurk at the smithy shop very hungover, and Lynch is yelling at him, saying that he needed him there in working condition. McGurk says he's just a little hungover and it's not a problem, but Lynch disagrees and says he looks pretty bad and he's probably going to send him home. So Coach reiterates that he's fine and that he needs the job. More specifically, he needs the money. It's already been spent. Lynch asks Coach what he spent the money on, and Coach goes on to explain that he met a guy last night and he spent the money on drinks and property. He says, yeah, I met a guy last night and I bought a shrimp farm.
Do we hear about that shrimp farm ever again, or is that just like a one-off?
Oh, that shrimp farm never comes up again, baby. Never, not once.
That's not
The way that
surprising.
Tim hesitated there, I was like, "Oh, he doesn't want to bring it up." I see.
I'm gonna make them.
This episode's an F now that I know the shrimp farm's never coming back.
get him.
So Lynch asks McGurk if he can still do the big finale, if he learned his lines. Coach obviously lies. He has no idea what he's talking about, and he's like, yeah. Lynch brings up the final performance, The Wizard and the Blacksmith. Coach has obviously no idea what he's talking about, but he's just like, Lynch reminds him he has to stay in character all day, and Coach agrees. Lynch asks for an example of what Coach would say as the blacksmith, and McGurk stumbles over the basic line of, "What do you want me to make you?" And then Lynch tells him, "No, say it again in Elizabethan." And that's when McGurk is like, "What do you want me to make you?"
That was a good bit. That got me.
And then immediately tells Lynch, "Move out of the way, I'm going to throw up." So in commentary, Brendan is like, listen, not the super best thing to be proud of or whatever, but McGurk in this scene, basically Brendan Small's influence was, he's like, when I was in high school and started like experimenting with drinking alcohol, there were those times where you would drink like way too much on a Friday or Saturday night and then would have to work the next day, and you're just like super hungover and you're just trying to like focus, like, yep, I can do that. Cool. Like your boss is yelling at you and you're just, I learned all my lines. The Wizard and the Blacksmith. You got it. Just being hungover at work the next day after like getting drunk and just trying to survive that day was kind of his influence on how McGurk is feeling in this particular scene.
Damn.
Now we have this cool transition where someone swings down an axe, and in the reflection of the axe head, we see Brendan as King Arthur. So we see a giant dude who I'm going to call Axeman. A couple things about Axeman. After I did the interview with David Sanangelo, he sent me a bunch of like notebook drawings, and the concept art for this character was one of the drawings that he sent me.
Oh, shit, I remember that.
Yeah.
I remember that too now. It's funny because the Axeman was my doodle this week.
Hell yeah.
Nice.
And the Axeman is voiced by Sam Cedar, who does the voice of Fenton.
Oh, I wouldn't have known.
No, honestly, I wouldn't have either if I didn't listen to the commentary.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I cannot place whose voice that is. But yeah, it's Sam Cedar doing like a very exaggerated, I don't know. Is it like a Scottish kind of? It's Elizabethan, I
Yeah.
guess.
It sounded kind of Scottish.
Yeah.
They look so different. I would have never noticed.
Axeman speaks to Brendan in pretty good Elizabethan, wishing him a good morrow, and asks, "How doth ye find yeself, me lord?" And Brendan whips out the list of outs and says, "Pardon me, good sir, I must tend to a dragon elsewhere." Well, that's when we pan over to see Melissa announcing that they will be doing their play about Robin Hood and King Arthur, done with mean minstrels. We pan over to Walter and Perry, who seem genuinely interested in watching the play, when Walter tells Perry that he reminds him of Robin Hood because he has beautiful skin.
I have a question.
Yes.
I just looked this up because I wasn't sure. But it was King Richard during Robin Hood.
Yeah.
Not King Arthur.
You're right. During, like, for all the Robin Hood movies, yeah, it's always King Richard.
Yeah.
But
so.
isn't the... I'm not exactly sure on this, but isn't the story like King Richard stole the crown from King Arthur and he's like the false king? Wasn't that a whole thing? I'm thinking of the Robin Hood animated Disney movie with the fox.
I'm not entirely sure.
That was Prince John. What the
Prince
fuck?
John and Prince Richard, yeah. When was King Arthur? That's what I
Yeah,
wanna
because
know.
in the Disney one they call him Prince John, the phony king of England.
Why?
Good question. Real quick, I did find that Walter and Perry were actually dressed up as specific characters and not just like generic.
Oh, what were they?
Walter was dressed up like William Wallace, and Perry was dressed as the Scarlet Pumpernickel.
Oh shit. Oh, here's what I found.
What do you got?
King Arthur was in the 6th century. Robin Hood was in the 12th century.
Oh, so they're 600 years apart.
Yeah. Explain that, Brendan Small.
Yeah, get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
I've got questions.
One thing, the Perry specifically, that outfit is incredible. I love that outfit that he has.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the other thing, right before that, when Melissa is trying to advertise for the show, I just noticed it because I'm looking back at it, but her neck doesn't have the outline.
Yes, they brought that up in commentary just for that one part. The rest of the episode, black line is there. But when she is announcing that they are going to do the play with her minstrels, there is no line work for her neck and her head. And some parts looks like it's just floating.
Really? I didn't even notice.
Yeah.
Just checking it out.
They did notice that in commentary. Yeah, they brought it up.
Damn.
Okay.
This week and last week, I've been really bad about catching
It's
background
only
shots.
because
it's okay.
It's only because I have it up, like I'm watching it as we go through each scene.
Oh.
And it's not until season 4, but somebody on the Brendan posting just posted a background catch for an episode that, 1, I've seen a million times. 2, I never caught the background catch thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I almost felt embarrassed. I'm like, how did I never see that?
Oh, for an episode we haven't done yet?
Yeah.
Well, you don't need to feel embarrassed. We haven't done it yet.
Right. But I'm just saying, like, even someone like myself who I have seen these episodes probably like 8 to 10 times each.
Yeah.
And I am truly obsessed with this show. I think that just speaks to like how well they're able to get stuff into the background, because there's stuff that even when I watch it with like a very critical eye, I don't catch.
Yeah.
And even 2 things in this episode as background catches that, had I not talked to people who had physically worked on the show, I would have had no idea. So, and we'll get to those very, very soon. So while Walter and Perry are talking, we hear the sound of some kind of mechanical robot. It's like a mechanical whirling noise. And that's when we see what looks like a battle bot start chasing Walter. The robot flips an apple cart, which ends up landing on top of Walter. And that's when Fenton approaches, dressed in a sci-fi costume, saying, "Greetings, Earthlings." And I don't know why the delivery of this line just tickles me so much, but Perry's like, "You jerk, you made an apple cart fall on Walter."
I was so upset about this part. I'll get into it much later on when we get to the very end of the episode, but it made me a little more upset, especially when I found out it was Fenton, of all people.
Your favorite.
Yeah.
At one point, Fenton made Marson laugh, and he's all like, "No!"
He made me laugh.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when Perry says that, Fenton's like, "Oops," and then just like moves on.
That sounds right.
He goes on to ask everyone if they like his robot, and that's when the Axeman speaks up and asks who he is causing problems. And Fenton says he's from the future, and he's there to blow up their planet. So the Axeman runs away screaming, "Run! Run from the future, man!"
I will.
Fenton says, "That's right, run, dork."
Right. He's the dork, not Fenton.
Right.
I'm trying to figure out what his costume is supposed to be, or is it just like generic sci-fi?
Well, funny enough, that's when he tells Brendan that his name is Dr. Neptune. Yeah, I don't know if it's a reference to anything or if it's just...
I assume they had to keep it vague just for, like, copyright.
Right.
Since they're, yeah.
Well, Jason is very complimentary of Dr. Neptune, telling him he's got a very cool robot. That's when Dr. Neptune explains that he's just testing it out because he's going to enter it in the sci-fi robot battles. Says he's got a pretty good chance of winning. Immediately, he tells Brendan he should come check it out, and Brendan tells him, "Well, no, I gotta stay here." And Fenton says medieval stuff sucks. Melissa gets pretty defensive and says, "No, it's cool. At least it really happened." And that's when Fenton shoots back to Melissa, "Yeah, okay, nice nightgown."
And that's when Marson laughed
He
and
laughed and laughed.
He slapped his knee. He threw his head
just
back.
like the people from the SpongeBob movie. I was like, because he says like, "Oh, nice nightgown. What happened? Forget the dress this morning?" And that I didn't expect him to. He's usually like, "Oh, Brendan, stop the lights. Fuck you."
Yeah.
That's the extent.
Yeah. Well, Jason goes on to explain again that he likes his robot, and Fenton's like, "Yeah, whatever. Nice tights, loser. Does your mom know you steal her clothes?" And Jason's like, "No." Well, that's when Fenton leaves and gives a sincere goodbye to Brendan, and then to the rest of them he says, "Goodbye, dorks."
So I'm confused because last time Fenton was around, he wasn't a huge fan of Brendan because he saw his mom naked.
Right.
So is it's all water under the bridge, or
I think Fenton's just hurting for a friend so bad, and
Damn.
he does seem to have some favoritism towards Brendan.
Yeah.
Every time he comes up, he's like, "Hi, Brendan. What's up, dorks?"
Well, he can be friends with Jason because apparently Jason thinks he's the whole package.
Yeah.
He's a package. Maybe he's got all the royalties from Fenton's mom's naked.com, and now it's all water under the bridge. But he does seem to really want the attention of Brendan, which I find kind of cute, a little bit, the tiniest bit, if he wasn't such a horrid character.
Yeah. It's also a little suspicious.
Yeah. Did you, though, catch the gnomes?
So I'm not sure if it's quite at this part, because, dude, this episode moves so fast, and it's all at the Renaissance Fair. Yeah. Except the very beginning and very end in Paula's car, it's all at the Renaissance Fair.
There's in this specific scene right between Brendan and Dr. Neptune.
Is it the background? There's a shop called Bowling Ye Gnomes.
Yeah, I see it right there. It's at 801.
What?
Okay. So, yeah, there's a background shop called Bowling Ye Gnomes. You know what? There's actually a list here of all of the shops that we see in the background. So we see a shop called Meat for Thee, the Smithy Shop, Armor, Bowling Ye Gnomes, Medieval Eats, Medieval Wands, and Torches. So a lot of these we see kind of Helmet at, but yeah, the Bowling Ye Gnomes was in the background.
I literally just noticed that. And I also just noticed that the sci-fi balloon is hanging out in the background of this scene. I didn't even catch it the first time around, but it says Sci-Fi Unite.
Yeah, and you see it kind of floating in the background in a couple different scenes. I know when Brendan is talking to McGurk right at the start of the third act that you see it back there. Yeah, you see it in the background a couple of times. So the next scene, we see a character approach Brendan, Jason, and Melissa to wish them a good morrow. He introduces himself as Helmet and greets Melissa with a hello, fair maiden, and Jason with a good morrow, Robin Hood. So I don't know if you guys noticed, and Adele even mentioned, she's like, oh, is that voiced by Brendan Small? Because it is very similar voices. It is not. It is voiced by Patton Oswalt.
Oh.
Who else did he voice?
Ratatouille?
Yeah.
Ah, that's where I know him from.
Yes.
He was also in King of Queens.
He's been in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
There's a very famous clip of him in the show Parks and Recreations, where he is doing a filibuster on how he thinks the next Star Wars movie should open. And they let hit, unscripted, they're like, just go to town. And he did it. And not only was it hilarious, but they ended up using parts of his little speech in later Star Wars shows, because he talks about Boba Fett coming back and not really being dead.
Damn.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. They did say in commentary, Patton Oswalt played D&D. He did Ren Fair stuff. So as far as his dialogue, he's like, guys, I got this. Don't even worry about it. So when he's talking about the inlaced scrimshaw, all that kind of stuff, that's all Patton just being a dork. Helmet confesses that they're investigating a future man that came over and caused a ruckus, flipping over apple carts and whatnot. Brendan says that that's just Fenton and he's fine.
Sticking up for Fenton.
Yeah.
This is how he follows you around all the time. You start sticking up for him.
Yeah.
Well, Helmet pushes back and says those jerks are going to pay. That the sci-fi guys have been pushing around the medieval guys for years, and this year they're going to stop, and they're shutting down those ray gun boys. So Brendan tells him not to do anything stupid, and Helmet says that he's off to consult his dice for his next move. As he turns to leave, he swings his sword, which tears Melissa's dress.
The audacity.
When she points out to Helmet that he ripped her dress, Helmet says, sorry, wench, I did not see you there, and leaves.
Rude.
Jason seems annoyed that everyone's calling Brendan my lord, and Melissa points out that they're treating him like that because he's dressed as the king.
Me lord.
And Jason says it's getting pretty annoying, and Brendan actually agrees. So the next scene, we have a bunch of people gathered, and that's when we see they're waiting in front of the blacksmith booth, and we see a sleeping Coach McGurk on the ground. two characters walk up to him and tell him to wake up and make them silver-tipped arrows, and they command it. At one point, they even say they're part of the aristocracy, and he must do what they say. They start calling him a stupid idiot until he gets up and headbutts one of them. The other one just raises his helmet and says, "That was awesome."
I was shocked that he just really went to town on that headbutt because he knocked that kid out.
Dude, that kid went flying.
Yeah. Especially with a hangover when you got a headache
I couldn't
already.
even imagine.
Right. Especially you.
Dude, I was just going to say I get migraines pretty bad. So, like, thinking
Oh,
about
migraines are the
thinking about
worst.
doing a headbutt with a migraine. Oof.
No.
Arguably, migraines are worse than hangover headaches. 100%.
We now have part one of the play, and part one is just the meeting of King Arthur and Robin Hood. And I wrote here in my notes, this music fucking slaps.
The way that it switches from, like, acoustic guitar into an electric.
To electric,
dope.
yeah.
Dude, he holds out his acoustic and it just explodes into an electric guitar.
Freaking Bob Dylan up here.
Yeah.
Fucking till him.
They're like, no, this is a folk festival. So the very first act of the play, Robin Hood and King Arthur meet each other. They go to fight, and then Brendan as King Arthur decrees that from this day forth, King Arthur and Robin Hood shall be best friends forever.
Cute.
I love it. The scene ends with Robin Hood like looks at him and then like throws his bow and arrow behind him, and then they hug.
Oh, 600 years apart.
That's right.
Have you seen Star versus the Force of Evil? Either of you?
No, I have not.
No.
I love Star versus the Forces of Evil. I really do love that show. It's on Disney Plus. Don't pay for it, but somehow legally obtain it. There is a guest star from someone from Fallout Boy plays a character who is like this bard and does a very similar type of performance to Scab here, and God, I love it so much. So
Pete Wentz.
I think so. Maybe. I don't know these band
Yeah.
members. I just know the music.
Patrick Stump.
It might be Patrick Stump. If not, Stump me.
Who knows?
I am unfamiliar with both of those things, so yeah, I'm super stumped.
Sorry.
It's not your fault. I'm ill-informed.
Google just told me it was Patrick Stump.
Ah.
Did you just give your Google a thumbs up?
You got it.
Tell your Google we love them.
Listen, you got to be nice to the technomancers of the world before they rise up.
Mm-hmm. I remember you can cut this out. I remember someone told my Alexa to slob on his knob.
Yeah, Alexa.
I don't even remember a thumbs up after that one.
Alexa, leave me alone.
Well, after the first act, we see Brendan going over the script, and Helmet is there praising the king. He goes on to tell Brendan that one of them has infiltrated the sci-fi sector and sabotaged the robot, all in the name of good King Arthur. God save the king. As Brendan is asking him to clarify, we see Fenton walk up and asking which one of them did this. This part cracks me up because he's holding up his robot, who has a medieval flag shoved through one of his eyeballs, and Fenton is like, I have a pretty good idea that it was someone from over here.
Can I drop some more lore?
Yes.
So King Arthur was from the 6th century. Robin Hood was from the 12th century. The Renaissance was from the 14th to the 17th century. So neither of those characters were even in the Renaissance period.
Damn. What is medieval, technically?
And what century is Dr. Neptune from?
The 300th century.
Yes. It just hasn't happened
He's
yet.
a 31st century man.
When was...
Dr. Neptune is holding his little toy, and the way that the smoke is coming back and forth, it keeps like going like forward and reversing in animation and then cutting back and forth.
They're also using a really cool, specifically on the robot, they're using a really cool like electric, almost like a lightning bolt kind of effect in two different areas on the robot.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm talking about? There's like, two different areas that have that like lightning effect on it. Yeah, they really upped the animation on this episode specifically, because not only do you have none of your traditional characters in what they're traditionally wearing, everyone's in costume. So it's not like you can grab the Mr. Lynch model and be like, all right, slap him in. No, he needs to be Moylan.
Moylan.
And they also mentioned in commentary that it has that season finale feel where it's just an excuse to get multiple characters all in the same area for some reason, and that reason being the Renaissance / sci-fi convention.
I was wondering about Helmet a little bit because we don't know his like real name, and I doubt you'll tell me if it's true, but I'd be very tickled if he ever came back as like a real person or like his identity was revealed.
That would be very interesting now, wouldn't it?
The medieval era spanned across the 5th century all the way to the 15th century.
Okay.
So it was over multiple different eras.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So the Renaissance was technically in the medieval era because medieval spans through so many.
Yes.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right. Well, we are now in Act 2 of the play where King Arthur and Robin Hood are now friends.
They're best buds.
We see Jason is taking a nap on King Arthur's throne. Robin Hood says it feels like dragon weather. And King Arthur asks Robin Hood if he has the money that he lent him the other week. Robin Hood says no, and King Arthur asks if he's seen his treasure chest. And again, Robin Hood denies it. So King Arthur makes it a point to say that since they've been friends, his valuables keep disappearing. And Robin Hood says, news to me. Well, that's when Guinevere enters and wishes Robin Hood a good morrow, saying it feels like dragon weather, doth it not? And then asks him if he's ready for their date. King Arthur is obviously upset. I love it. He's like, Guinevere? And she's like, ah! And he's like, date? And she's like, ooh. Like, busted. He asked Robin Hood, have you been stealing my things and giving them to the poor? And Robin Hood excitedly says, yes! And now you've stolen my girlfriend too? And again, Robin Hood excitedly shouts, yes! And Arthur asks, and you're giving her to the poor? And Robin Hood, for the 3rd time, shouts, yes!
Uh-oh.
I love Melissa's face when he says yes to giving to her poor. Her eyes just get big.
She's like, whoa.
Yeah. When Arthur reiterates, Robin Hood claims, yeah, that's what I said, yes. Well, and he tells him to unsheath thy sword. We'll fight to the death. And I love it. Robin Hood immediately pushes Guinevere away and says, so be it.
Poor Guinevere / Melissa.
Guinevere in the Robin Hood story?
I don't know who Guinevere is, to be honest.
I think that is actually King Arthur's canonical partner.
Guinevere.
I thought that in Robin Hood it was Lady Marian.
Yeah.
That's right.
Guinevere
And King Arthur.
was, I believe, with Lancelot.
Jesus Christ.
But Lancelot was a knight on King
there's
Arthur's round table.
Okay.
Did you just read my from across the room?
Well, that's what I assumed.
Oh, okay.
I know of King Arthur's round tables.
Yes, exactly.
I know Lance because he lances
So.
a
It's so
lot.
funny. Right. This all cracks me up because I'm like, yes, this is probably what an 8-year-old child thinks. Oh, yeah, of course, King Arthur and Robin Hood were friends, and Guinevere was there too. So I'm not that surprised that it is historically not even close to being accurate.
Yeah.
When they go to fight, then that's when the song kicks in. And, dude, I love the lyrics to this part, because this is the part where it's like, Robin Hood crossed the line, stole Arthur's concubine from him. They are about to fight, and that's when Dwayne is like, but stop and wait and look to the skies. And I love it because they're like in the middle of fighting, and they both like look at Dwayne and then look up. So that's when we see that a dragon approaches. So I guess it actually did feel like dragon weather.
Yep.
Looks like a very nice dragon, too. Just minding his own
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
Right? At one point, the lyrics are like, he has death in his eyes or some shit like that. And he looks like the sweetest little dragon.
Yeah, he's like waving to someone in the crowd as he's
Yeah.
being lowered down. Together, Robin Hood and King Arthur fight off the dragon. And Act 2 ends with the dragon being beaten by King Arthur and Robin Hood.
Robin Hood and Little John walking through the forest.
Well, once again, Brendan is approached by Helmet after the act. Brendan is again reviewing the script, and Helmet is pointing out that their numbers have increased. Helmet then points out that it is brought to his knowledge that there is indeed a traitor amongst their midst. And literally as he says this, we see Jason walk by in front of the camera reading a comic titled Sci-Fi Guy, insinuating that Jason is the traitor.
Or is he?
Well, Helmet tells Brendan not to worry, that him and his people will protect him, and that's when they start chanting Arthur. We pan over to Jason and Melissa. Jason, still reading the comic book, says, wow, we really killed it. They're calling for the author. Brendan tries to walk away, but once again runs into the Axeman, who tells him in Elizabethan that he really enjoyed his performance. He asks Brendan, what do you say to that? Brendan takes out the list of outs and simply says, farewell. We pan over to see Helmet in line trying to buy a caramel-dipped scroll, but keeps stating that he wants a fresh one that is hot. These are cold. These are cold. I've worked at these festival type situations before, and dude, every one that I've worked at has had a Helmet.
Oh yeah, who complains about
Yes.
things not being authentic enough.
Right.
Yeah.
Or one time I was working for a desserts thing, and the strawberries you're giving me are big enough, and it's like, dude, you're gonna get the same fucking strawberries everybody gets.
Yeah.
And after that, we have a scene between Merlin and the blacksmith.
McGurk, you've been in there for 45 minutes.
Yeah, whatever.
There are people lined up for the blacksmith booth. They want you back there.
Lynn, shut up, all right? I'm having stomach problems.
Look, get out here. I'm paying you to play a blacksmith, not to do what you're doing.
By the way, my lord, isn't this historically inaccurate? Shouldn't I be going outside in a hole in the ground? Not in this beautiful porta potty?
Well, I'm sure you
I
would be.
want one of these. Put it out my front lawn. Piss off my neighbors.
Look, get out here, McGurk. Get out here.
I heard you, Lynch.
Forget it. I'm not paying you.
All right, I'm out. I'm out. What are you booing?
He looks so proud of
I
himself.
know, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So there's a whole festival going on, and there's only one fucking porta potty?
Terrible.
Yeah, logistically, there has to be more, right? You can't
Yeah.
have that many people in one porta potty.
No.
Imagine the porta
no.
potty at the end of the day. That's a horrifying experience.
I don't wanna. I don't.
It's
I
one of the
don't wanna
reasons I don't like the
imagine it. Don't
Renaissance
make
Fair. I don't-
Yeah.
Well, you have a small bladder, so you can't avoid it.
I just go to the trees.
Authentic. If you.
I went to a week-long music festival once, and I also am not a fan of porta potties, so...
Yeah.
Nightmare.
Yes. Anyway, moving on. Yes. So after that, we pan over to see Helmet, who's trying to buy a wand of summoning. Each one he is presented with is not good enough because the wand of summoning has a pewter coil, and this one is inlaid scrimshaw. Even as, I'm sorry, was there whaling in King Arthur's time? I don't think so.
What I wrote down something about him specifically, which is
Witches?
witches.
Burn them!
The 8th level he's the helmet sounds like every rules lawyer D&D player I've DM'd for.
When this interaction is going down, we have a very quick, I don't even want to say background catch because this is actually a foreground catch. As Helmet is arguing, we see a man dressed as a monk walk by with a little baby on his shoulders, and the baby's wearing a cute little Viking helmet. I know who this is because this is an animator for home movies.
Ooh.
And not just an animator for home movies. This is an animator from home movies who reached out to me telling us how much he enjoyed the podcast.
Let's
Oh
go.
my goodness. How sweet.
And that at the time this episode was being worked on, I should probably say, it is an animator by the name of Stephen Rogan. When this episode was being worked on, he had a son. He had a child. So they incorporated him dressed as a monk and his little baby boy there is a Viking riding on his back.
Very sweet.
Cute.
So Steven told me this, and I was like, oh my God, dude, that's so awesome. We even had a chance to talk for a little bit, and he told me that even though he currently is not animating at the time, that his son actually is an animator. He sent me a link to his YouTube page, and his son has an animation that he did for the Game Grumps.
Hey.
Damn.
Yes, and his animation can be found on YouTube, cave_art.
Runs in the family.
And said, yep, even though I'm not animating, one of my sons is an animator, super talented, will carry on the torch for me into the future.
That's dope.
And he even said he will be working for Game Grumps. Well, when I was breaking down this episode, I reached out to Steven and I said, hey, is the son that's writing your back right now, is he the one that's doing like the animation and stuff? And he's like, no, actually, that's my other son who is currently developing a tabletop role-playing game.
Let's go.
Damn.
And I was like, bro, you are talking to the right nerds.
Talented family.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. Love that.
So he sent me a link to his Linktree, and it looks like they are developing a tabletop RPG called Nero, Nero, the TTRPG. It appears to be a tabletop role-playing game of conspiracy, horror, and anomalous investigation.
Sign me up.
So, yeah, I thought that was really cool. I would have had no idea had Steven not reached out to me. And it was, honestly, it was once we started season 3, and he said, you know, that's really when I started working on the show. And so I'll just say it, probably keep an eye out for a interview down the line with animator Steven Rogan.
Oh, I'm looking forward
Nice.
to it. The interviews you do with all these animators and people who actually worked on the show is just so not only enlightening about the show, but in general, talking to someone else who's an artist is always such a fun experience.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely is. And so far, everyone I've talked to has just been so like cool and genuine and down to earth. It just makes me love this show that much more.
And they always have such great things to say about the work environment of working on home movies, which is always great to hear that they actually
Right.
loved their job when they were making this
Yeah,
show.
let's talk to animators and video game developers now and see how they feel about their current working conditions.
Mhm. I wonder how passive aggressive we can be until they stop it.
They'll stop it just because of this podcast.
Damn, those three nobodies from the middle of nowhere really know what
Hey,
they're talking
wait.
about.
That
The
seems
middle
mean.
of nowhere
Sorry.
with his husband, Eustace Baggs.
All right. Well, now we see Brendan. He walks by and we hear Fenton trying to get his attention. Brendan asks what he's doing, and Fenton says he's there to recruit him. He just needs someone else from the inside. He even says either Brendan is with them or against them, and Brendan points out, or I just don't care.
And those are the people where nothing gets done if you don't care.
You need to care. You have to choose sci-fi or fantasy. Pick a side.
And pick the right side.
You want to be on the right side of history? Fenton tells Brendan again to join them, and Brendan asks Fenton to leave him out. Fenton tells him, you'll regret this decision. And then Fenton leaves by saying, Captain Neptune, away. And Brendan asks, isn't it Dr. Neptune? Before Fenton quickly corrects himself and says, Dr. Neptune, away. All right, well, now we see Coach McGurk in the blacksmith booth, and he's talking on a cell phone, talking about the night before and how he could barely walk out of there. He was so drunk.
I think I just caught this, and I'm surprised I just caught this, but the center of his chest, he still has the fucking whistle on. He still has the fucking whistle on.
They talked about that in commentary. They're like, it's like he laced the whistle into his like shirt lace that ties up the front of his shirt.
You know, but that is so McGurk because that whistle is what gives him power. So of course he's
Yeah.
going to wear it everywhere he goes.
It's kind of like his signet a little bit, like in Game of Thrones where they all had their little mascots. That's his.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Lynch approaches as Merlin, tells him to put the cell phone away because it doesn't exist.
This was my favorite quote.
Yeah,
Just the way that
was a good
McGurk
line.
kind of has like a facial journey while he's thinking about that.
Right. Because McGurk tells Lynch, I don't want to have a philosophical conversation about whether the phone exists. And that's when Lynch proceeds to take the phone away and tell the person that McGurk will call him back because he's busy making horseshoes. So McGurk tries to argue with Lynch to give his cell phone back, and Lynch is not paying attention. So finally McGurk yells, hey everyone, Merlin has a phone. Burn him. Burn him.
Honestly, if Merlin had a phone, that makes more sense.
Because he's a wizard.
Exactly.
It makes me wonder who he was talking to on the phone.
Yeah,
I figured it was
exactly.
the guy who he's bought the shrimp farm from.
When McGurk yells, Merlin has a cell phone, burn him, burn him. We see a very brief scene with two fairgoers holding torches, and they begin to like move on Mr. Lynch. Okay. These two characters, and I'll give a timestamp of about 18 minutes and 13 seconds if you'd like to follow along at home. 1813.
Mm-hmm.
These two characters, I was like, they look way too human to be in the home movies universe, as it were, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, again, I know that David Sanangelo, who we have interviewed in the past, had a lot to do with this episode, and I know that he also likes to get friends into the background of episodes. So these two characters, considering they look very human-like and kind of, I wouldn't say quite out of character in the home movies universe, but I was like, they look like somebody. So I went ahead and messaged David Sanangelo, and he got a nice little laugh out of it and said, yeah, actually, these two are my friends. Their names are Tina and Jarrett Berman. They're married in real life. And so he gave me the name. These are the two people that they're based off of. It looks exactly like
really
them.
Does. The hair, like her hair, and then his like beard and hair, like,
Yeah.
oh my God, the eyebrows.
Everything. It's like spot on.
Yeah.
So yeah, if
Damn.
you just Google Tina and Jarrett Berman, there's a photo of them from Getty Images, and they look exactly like the couple holding the torches at 18 minutes and 13 seconds.
That's so cute. I love that.
Yeah. When I saw that, I sent it to Adele, and I'm like, they're married.
And they were married.
And they were roommates.
So I was an animator, I'd draw you guys.
Aw.
For sure. Well, we get one more pan over again to see Helmet at another shop telling the shop owner that they need to acknowledge that they're talking to a chaotic neutral 8th-level half-elf ranger illusionist.
I love the losing your breath while you were saying that.
And that he should be treated with the respect that deserves. The shopkeep gets annoyed and closed the shop, and that's when we see Helmet yell for Mighty Odin to hit him with a cleansing thunderbolt.
Fucking cringe, dude.
Now, I don't know if you saw, we see a top-down view of Helmet when he's saying this, and the person behind him raises a sword and is about to attack him. Now, I'm not 100% positive, but I'm going based off of kind of the way this person is standing in line and their hair. Oh, and by the way, another transition for this one, we have a naked woman as like almost like a Lady Godiva.
I was gonna say, because when I was watching that scene the first time, I was just paying attention to what Helmet was saying. I didn't even notice the naked woman on the horse until I just watched it.
Yeah, there's like a Lady Godiva-esque woman standing there. So Helmet is in line. He's doing the whole, I'm a chaotic neutral 8th level, blah, 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to get a goblet of non-alcoholic mead, okay? Now, you see there's a person standing behind him in line holding a sword, and that's who inevitably lifts the sword and tries to attack him. I'm not 100%, but this is my theory. I'm dropping a picture into Discord. I believe that person is Natasha Kitsvitchik.
Yes.
Kitsvitchik?
It's the exact same hair. Exact same hair.
And even the way
Yeah.
she's standing kind of gives me the same
Damn.
vibe. Now, for anyone who doesn't want to follow along, again, this is at 1816, Helmet's in line, the person behind him. I believe the person behind him who lifts their sword to attack is Natasha. We don't get a real last name because Mr. Lynch has a hard time pronouncing it. She's the one at Writers Fair who does like the one-person play. There's like the piano player. She's like talking to a framed photograph. I'm like pretty sure that's the same character.
Damn, it is. This is why you're the expert, babe. Because nobody else would have put that together. Holy shit, that's wild.
So that just kind of made me laugh a little bit.
They got
So,
the character designs. Bring her back.
yeah,
Yeah.
why not?
Just her back, though.
Yeah. Like literal bring her back, just her back. Hey friends, Editor Tim here. Since recording this episode, I've had the pleasure of talking to animator Stephen Rogan, who informed me that yes, I was correct. This Joan of Arc character at the Renaissance Fair was modeled off of Natasha, who was also modeled off of his wife. So, just thought you wanted to know. Enjoy the rest of the episode. So, the next scene we see Brendan talking to Coach McGurk. Coach is telling Brendan not to drink the night before a medieval fair, but to drink during.
Genuinely.
Oh, yes, 8-year-old.
Yeah. And I like this part, and they even call it out in commentary. They're like, yes, the old gotta set up the third act by having a character pretty much tell you everything that's happened the first two acts. So Brendan goes on to explain Fenton and Helmet are getting into a stupid nerd fight. You know, he doesn't want to be involved. Coach brushes it off and says they're dorks. Let them fight. It would be funny. Have you ever seen two dorks fight?
Yeah.
Brendan goes on to say that the rumor is that there's a traitor around and he's worried because these kids are weird and they might do something stupid. Coach goes on to say, you know what looks interesting is that sci-fi convention. And Brendan's like, oh, God, you two.
The sci-fi.
Sci-fi.
So they say it like Christopher Walken.
Sci-fi.
The sci-fi.
Parkour.
And Brendan says that's the issue. Everybody is fighting sci-fi against medieval. And Coach tells him that's the way it's been for years. Medieval people fighting with sci-fi people. It's been going on for thousands of years. This is why the conventions are so close to each other, because it's a reenactment. Brendan asks Coach what he would do in this situation, and Coach hands him $4 and says to go across the field to the burger place, give me a double burger with cheese, fries, curly fries. Well, Brendan pushes back and says they didn't have fries at medieval times, and Coach reminds him they're not at medieval times. I love it. He's like, look over there. It's the burger place. You can see it from here. Oh, wait, there's a car. It just drove by. Now it's going into the drive-thru. And Brendan is like, why are you yelling? And Coach is like, because go get me one.
Because go get me one. I fucking love that shit. It's such a siblings thing to say to somebody.
I get his pain, because all he
Just go
wants
get
is
me
a
one.
burger. They're like, no, you're not allowed to have one. It's like, let me fucking eat a burger.
He's hungover. Let him have a burger.
My friend Chaz says there's a cure for hangover, and it's McDonald's breakfast the day after.
Yeah,
Yeah.
typically it's anything greasy that can just kind of soak up all
Yeah.
the alcohol.
All the pain.
I know people who... Have you ever heard of the saying, the hair of the dog that bit
Oh,
you?
yes, I have.
Where you drink the...
Yeah, that's the theory of, like, if you get drunk on, say, let's say, I don't know, fucking like whiskey one night, the next morning to help your hangover from whiskey, you should take a little shot of whiskey just to take some hair of the dog that bit you.
An alcoholic made up that rule.
I bet they
I mean-
did. My uncle?
The only reason I remember that is because in The Shining, that's one of the things that Jack's character says to one of the bartenders. And now Eddie says that to me all of the time. He's like,
Really?
Just
In what context?
hey, what's going on? Like, it's just a little hair of the dog that bit ya. You know, haven't seen him in a couple days. He'll say that to me when we start talking again.
That's
Huh.
funny. Well, we have the final act of the play. And now the dragon has been slain. And King Arthur and Robin Hood have to decide if they still want to do what they were going to do, which is fight. We see them hugging, and that's when King Arthur pulls Robin Hood's sword, and they get into a fighting position. Dude, this scene, the music, just Brendan and Jason in fighting position. You start seeing the hooded characters
Yeah.
sprinkle into the crowd. 2 garden gnomes in the crowd, by the way, 2 gnomes. We see them, once the fight really kicks off, we see the 2 gnomes drinking with Coach McGurk laughing.
Yeah, because they're laughing at all the dorks fighting.
Exactly.
Could you pull that up on screen so I can see all the references? Because
yeah.
I tried to look at all of
Oh, it
them, but
happened
I
so
know I
quickly,
missed
I had
some.
to stop.
Oh, there's a ton.
I know. I saw Harry Potter. I saw Alien.
Yeah, there was
Uh,
Voltron. There was Alien. There was, oh my goodness, what was the one?
Before we jump into that, when they were, when Arthur and Robin Hood were hugging, I was like, oh, they're best friends. And then I saw Arthur reaching for Robin Hood's sword. I was like, oh, they're best friends.
Way, oh. Dude, Brendan's mouth just drops open when it's finally revealed that the main traitor, the hooded figure that pretty much coordinated this entire attack, was Melissa.
Hell yeah, it was. And this is why Melissa's the fucking best.
I also gasped out loud when I saw the hood revealed and it was
Yes.
Melissa. I was like, oh!
Yeah. In the commentary, Brendan and Lauren Bouchard were like, of course, the twist being it was Melissa. And they're like, I feel like we did this a few times where they're like, yep, this is something shitty Brendan or Jason did. Here's the twist. It was actually Melissa. But this one, the twist ending with Melissa being the head of the attack, takes down her hood. She's got the cyborg eye, the laser eye. She yells attack, and now we've got, it looks like Star Wars fighting, Harry Potter-like characters. Yeah. Dr. Neptune jumps on Merlin. You've got a bunch of people. I love that part. They were getting in defensive formation to protect the king, and Brendan just rolls his eyes. Here we have like 5 kids trying to be like a Voltron, but they just like can't even put the pieces together. They just fall down over their own weight. Harry Potter getting attacked. I think that's a Battlestar Galactica robot. Yeah. I feel like this guy with the pointy ears and nose is another reference. I don't get maybe a Green Lantern type reference. He has like a green ring on.
No Doctor Who references? F.
Then Gandalf the Grey.
There's gotta be. Wait. Who's this laying on the ground right here?
I spoke too soon.
What time?
Is that one of the older ones?
20 minutes, 59 seconds. We have a man laying on the ground with a very long scarf.
Yeah, hold on. Everybody, I gotta fact check this scarf. Hold on.
Oh, it is! That's Tom
Doctor
Baker,
Who.
Doctor Who.
Yep.
That's Doctor Who. So we
Oh
got
my
Doctor Who
gosh.
in there.
Okay, I'm satisfied. You can't not have a Doctor Who reference. I'm a little upset that they made the Doctor dead, apparently.
Yeah. Let me see here. I got a quick. During the sci-fi medieval, several references can be found. Many kids trying to form into Voltron, Harry Potter versus a robot, the robot from Lost in Space, Gundam Wing, a stormtrooper, Star Wars can be seen as well.
He was the fourth Doctor.
There you go. You got Doctor Who.
Then
Damn, I
Gandalf
spoke
the
too soon.
Grey and Gandalf the White and Monty Python and the Holy Grail's Black Knight and Benito Mussolini and the Blue Meanie and Cowboy Curtis and Zombie the Genie, the RoboCop, the Terminator, Captain Kirk and Darth Vader.
Wait a minute.
Every single Power Ranger.
Stop.
My brain starts leaking out of my ears.
Once I realize those references are not in here, I gotta stop you there. Gotta stop you there. I do like Helmet on the ground, and he's got like an alien and some kind of like mech on either side of him.
Little cry baby.
Well, we have the final scene. It's Jason, Melissa, and Brendan riding home in the back of the car. Melissa still with her sci-fi headgear on. Brendan asking, so she was the traitor the whole time? Like, you got the robes and led the people in to the fair? And Melissa says yes. Jason even says that sometimes Melissa impresses him.
Oh, we know, Jason.
Well, Brendan seems a little confused and says he didn't think she really cared about all that sci-fi stuff. And that's when Melissa says she doesn't. But Helmet ripped her dress and called her a wench. He was asking for it.
Hell yeah, he fucking was. Oh, I love Melissa so much.
Oh, Jason's like, girl power. Power to the ladies. He is smitten.
My only thing is Dr. Fenton. Dr. Neptune also insulted Melissa.
You're right.
Right.
You're so right.
But I think it was a silly, like, hey, I'm making fun of all the medieval people, and you just happen to be here. Right. Whereas Helmet, he ripped her dress. He called her a wench. Like, that was enough for her to be like, okay, fuck all this.
Right. I think there's to just be like picked on a little bit for what you're wearing versus someone ruining your costume and then calling you an actual like insult. I stand behind Melissa on her decision.
100%.
Plus, she looked badass with that laser eyeball.
Yeah, 2 badass Melissa endings, like the end of Shore Leave when she gets out of the Fairy Princesses.
Yeah.
So,
I want to grow up to be Melissa.
Hell yeah. So at this point, Jason is like, hey, look what I stole, and produces a pig's head before saying, don't worry, it's ceramic. And I don't know if you got this, he's like, I'm going to give it to my dad.
Yeah.
when he pulled out the pig's mask, I guess I had some sort of traumatic event when I first saw the movie Saw, because I was like, no!
And that's where it all started.
Nice.
Jason is Jigsaw.
Yeah.
I love it because Paula is like, what are you guys talking about? In unison, they're like, nothing. And so she asks Brendan, how was the medieval fair? And Brendan replies, it was pretty much the same as last year. And that's the end of Season 3, Episode 6, Renaissance. But during the credits scene, we have a quick scene where Walter and Perry are under the apple cart together. That was the part I missed earlier in the episode. At one point, we do see that Perry dug his way under the apple cart to get under there with Walter,
yeah.
which logic dictates they now have a hole to get out of there.
Yeah, but now they get to sleep under the cart
Under
together.
the apples.
right. Quick scene with Walter and Perry under the apple cart talking about how this is the best night they've ever had. They say goodnight to each other, and then about 3 seconds later, they talk about how they can't sleep, and they have a case of the giggles.
Very sweet.
So cute.
And now is the end of Season 3, Episode 6, Renaissance.
This was, earlier I mentioned the one thing I was a little tiny bit upset about was the fact that I thought that Walter and Perry were going to come back and be the force of good to take out Dr. Neptune. I was expecting that to pop out and be like, we hate Fenton! Fenton! Hate!
Hate. Hate.
And then
Brendan.
Dr. Neptune leaps into like 58 feet into the air in front of the sun and then comes down on Mr. Lynch.
Silhouettes in
Yeah.
front of the sun, yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
You made an apple cart fall on Walter.
I am a little disappointed we didn't get to see the Wizard and the Blacksmith finale. I wonder what that would have been
I
like,
would've loved-
but it's okay.
Mr. Lynch crashes out on McGurk and just starts beating the shit out of him. That's my headcanon.
Oh. Well, McGurk was not only watching all the dorks fight, but now he knows he doesn't have to do the blacksmith and the wizard and the blacksmith, so he's happy. He's having a grand old time.
I feel that.
So, oh, guys, this is probably legitimately one of my favorite episodes of home movies.
I don't blame you. This was a really good episode.
Very fun. Incredibly fun.
Yeah.
We haven't gotten there, but this one and one other one are like the two episodes that I traditionally show people to introduce them to the show.
Yeah.
When we started this podcast, this was the episode I was most looking forward to breaking down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Knowing that we've gotten to this point in the podcast and that we've gotten to talk to people who worked on the show, and especially David, he had a majority of the end fight scene of this episode was him.
Nice.
So knowing he got to just nerd out and put all of his like favorite nerdy references in there, and just the fact that he's so willing to be like, oh, hey, those are my friends. I snuck them into the background of this episode. And like, I don't know. It hits different on a whole new level now, but I can't express to you guys like how much this episode means to me.
It was an incredible, kind of like a watch this. Especially this, like, far into the season of Season 3, because I know they were worried about Season 3, Episode 1 being the too high of a bar to catch, but I honestly think they did really, really good here.
And honestly, I mean, I get it. You want to start your season off with a big bang, and up until this point, you know, I was like, man, maybe they did go too hard on Episode 1, but after this episode, I'm like, no, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing. Do we want to start with a Jason grade?
Yeah, here's the thing. I don't want to give Jason a bad grade because, you know, he was good, but like I don't think he really, like, Fenton made me laugh this episode. I don't think Jason said anything or did anything that made me like really, you know, cackle. I think he was just kind of there. So I'm struggling with giving him just an A or a B. I want to lean towards giving him a B just because, you know, he didn't do anything too terrible, but he also didn't do anything that made me laugh or make me think, oh, yeah, Jason's great, you know, so I think I'm just going to give him a B.
That's fair.
I think he absolutely destroyed the part of Robin Hood.
Mm-hmm. In a good way.
Yeah, he crushed it. I mean, it's really unfair to Melissa, but when he says he stole King Arthur's girlfriend and he's giving her to the poor, And they're like, she's like, what? And then they like, let's fight to the death. And him just shoving Guinevere, being like, so be it.
Yeah. Because it's funnier when it
Right?
happens to the girl.
And then play that awesome music as they're walking down the sunset.
Yeah.
So, very, very nice. Episode grades. Who would like to go first?
Me.
Adele.
This was a really good episode. I understand why it's your favorite, because it was just really good moments. So many good quotes. I feel like half of my notes were just like quotes that made me laugh. I really liked the twist ending. Any ending where Melissa turns out to be a badass is up there for me, I believe. And the little ending when like Jason is like clearly crushing on Melissa for being a badass. I was like, damn it. Okay, the shipment is growing on me a little bit. I'm going to give it an S, because any episode where Melissa like fucking comes out on top, I'm like, that's an S tier episode for me, 100%.
I knew that this season especially had some just real badass Melissa scenes.
Mm-hmm.
And Shore Leave, the end of that with the fairy princesses, obviously. But this one I was looking forward to because it has that feel of the end of Fairy Princess. But right before you get to that, there is the reveal that it is Melissa, and just the moment of like, wait, what? They do a very good job of having Jason be the red herring in this episode.
Yeah.
And 100% the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, obviously Jason is the traitor.
Mm-hmm.
So they got me.
I thought the
real
twist
good.
was going to be that it was Helmet.
Ah.
So I was like, okay, I'm watching Helmet the whole time. So
You know what? And I do get that, because the entire setup is he's getting more and more frustrated with all the vendors, all the, you know what I mean? So I could see that he's finally like, you know what? No, I expected so much out of this medieval fair, and I'm getting so little in return.
Helmet turns heel.
They're right. Sci-fi is it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Helmet goes John Cena.
I would like to give a grade. This is, like I said, my rule right now is not to give out S tiers until we get to the end and do that, ranking, because I want to see what the recency bias, since I have never seen the show and I literally watched the episode before we jump in here. But easy A+. Easy A+. I don't even have to explain everything. It is just such an easy A+ episode. The way that Melissa is in the car at the end of the day, and she's got this smile on, and she looks just like, I killed it. And she's got her arms crossed, and just a really fun episode. The twists, I can understand that people expected it to be, or I could have seen it being the finale of this season, because it is so good, and it has all of these different characters that come together, and we see everybody just working together. Paula, as small of a role that she has, is in there, and she's very Paula, and I love Paula.
Yeah.
So yeah, easy A+, especially that battle scene at the end, which I forgot to talk about, but when it happened, I wrote down average Fallout versus Skyrim debate. So just a really good episode. Easy A+.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, again, I can't reiterate how much I love this episode. This is kind of a go-to for what I show people when I'm trying to introduce them to the show. The episode before we even conceived this podcast meant so much to me, and would have been one of the easiest S-tier grades I would have given to an episode, with literally no questions asked. But because it is now in this new context of I get to do this podcast, I get to share it with you, both of you guys who mean so much to me. And then through the podcast, I have now gotten to meet and talk to multiple people who've worked on the show. And then specifically David Sanangelo, who was essentially given the green light to do the finale scene and put as many references as he wants and add so much to what it is. And now with this weird knowledge of like, oh, that's an animator and his son, and that's two of David's friends, and I noticed in the background this, and it's made this episode like so far above and beyond what home movies has felt to me, that this episode is going to be my first S+ episode.
Whoa! Last week was S-.
Yeah.
But Tim, the shrimp farm never comes back.
Shit, you're right. Okay, I'm gonna give it like a D-.
So yours is an S+, and Marston's is an A+, and mine's an S.
Yeah.
Stats.
Yeah.
When last time it was like an S-, I was like, so that means that there's an existence of an S+. So.
And here we are.
Interesting that I would lay the groundwork like that.
It's almost like you planned it.
Mastermind.
Interesting.
Yeah, he is.
I can probably watch this episode 100 times and never, ever, ever get sick of it. I love it so much. I've watched this now 3 times in the last 24 hours, just doing breakdowns, watching it with you guys, listening to the commentary. And if later on this evening, Adele was like, hey, you want to smoke a bowl and watch the Renaissance episode? I'd be like, yes, I do. Yes,
Hint, hint.
I do.
Hint, hint.
So, yeah, I love this episode so much. It means so much to me, and I'm so happy that we finally get to cover it.
We
really
made it,
did.
guys.
We did it. Hell yeah. Is there anything else we would like to add to this?
One thing, because if I don't, it's going to kill me. It's a timestamp. It's at 20:57. There's a character holding a pink sword. I just want to know, like, I've seen her somewhere in the show before. I want to know where she's from, because otherwise it's going to kill me.
I see who you're talking about. I have a theory. I don't know if it's correct. So it's the woman. She's got the pink sword. She's
Yep.
hitting the guy with the blue hoop. Oh, that's a
Yep,
fucking
yeah,
Tron
that's Tron.
reference.
Ah, yeah.
Is this a Xena warrior princess type?
That's what I was going to say, but that's the pink sword that's kind of throwing me off.
I think they just gave a bunch of people weapons.
Okay.
I don't know if they necessarily... There's a gun on the ground right here.
Oh, yeah, that's
That's
Star
a
Trek
a
Next
laser
Generation
gun.
pilot dude.
Yes, the thing over his eyes. I'm getting a Xena warrior princess. What I'm wondering about is the circle. I think this is some kind of circle blade.
Yeah.
I was
don't
actually
know.
referring to her as a home movies character instead of like a reference, because I've seen
I've who
seen
she
the
was playing.
home movies character somewhere in this show.
Damn, I don't know.
Yeah, she doesn't look familiar to me.
It's the hair. I feel like I would have recognized. Is that an ape from Planet?
Oh
of
my
the
yeah,
Apes?
who's like butt up laying on the ground.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's so many references in here. Good job, David.
there's
There
a
really
lot.
is.
Yeah.
Thank you,
absolute
David,
kudos.
for adding Doctor Who.
Yes.
Thank you,
Even
David.
if he's laying on the ground.
Even if he's dead,
He's
which would never happen in real life.
Not dead,
I mean,
he's
he'd
just
regenerate.
resting.
I was about to
He's
say.
regenerating. Yeah.
So, and the thing is, we found so many references in that episode, we probably missed just as many as we
Oh
found.
yeah,
So,
for sure. I'm sure there was some in the
There's a
background,
robot
just
from
like
Metropolis.
regular.
Yeah, we could keep going with this, but it's the end of the episode, so
Yeah.
so again, kudos to David, kudos to everyone who worked on home movies, and especially this episode. This episode to me is just quintessential home movies. This is what this show is.
Yeah.
Which is funny because there was no movie in this home movies.
Well, it was a Renaissance
Yes.
version of a movie.
They made it a point to have Brendan be like, I am filming it. So, but yeah, that is it.
Love. Great episode.
Great episode. So, anything we want to add about the episode?
Not that I can think
No,
of.
I think we covered it. Any abbreviated plugs you want to throw out there?
dig it up. Oh, dig it.
Go watch Holes.
That's all.
Yeah. Go throw your eye holes at the movie Holes.
I gotta have Tim watch that movie. You can call me Mr. Sir.
Yes, Mr. Sir.
Sigourney Weaver in that movie.
You thirsty? Yes, Mr. Sir.
Gorgeous.
Well, you better get
Gorgeous.
used to it because you're going to be thirsty for the next 18 months. Love that movie.
Sniped.
Well,
Yeah.
I think the most appropriate way we can end this episode is by asking our beloved audience, what do you want me to make you? In Elizabethan. That's going to do it for this episode of Rewatching Home Movies. Join us next week for Season 3, Episode 7, My Cheatin' Heart. If you liked what you heard, check out our Linktree at Linktree/RHMpod. There, you can like, follow, and subscribe, send us an email, or leave us a 5-star review. Thanks to Chris Bongat for the use of our theme song, and Jens for the refresh of our logo. On behalf of myself, Tim, and my co-host, Marcin, and Adele, thank you for rewatching home movies with us. We'll see you next week. Bye.
And then afterwards, all right, same time next week, guys.